appreciative that he got up early to do this. To be honest, Mirko, it's tough to get folks from Europe to be on the show at this time, and this is a great time for Americans to see this, and so I'm very excited about this conversation. If you are familiar with the platform, then you know you're on Haps. If you don't, and you're watching from Facebook, you're watching from YouTube, you're watching from some dark web kind of place, and you want to give me some credit card numbers because I need some money. No, I'm just kidding. The Then this is Haps, and it is a live streaming platform. By the way, put your money in live streaming. It's huge. It's think YouTube in the early days, even bigger in a lot of ways, I think. But my name is Revolution McKinnis. This is the big interview. This is, I think, the first time that I've done back-to-back episodes of the program, so that's a unique thing for tonight. But tonight we're going to talk about the Internet of Things, cybersecurity, computers, all kinds of stuff. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Germany and what's going on there, and just get to know Mirko. And we already have some things in common with Clubhouse and stuff. So I think this will be a fun time. And let's go with our quick little promo here. We'll be back in about 45, 50 seconds. Hey there. I just wanted to take a quick break and quickly say, if you like this program or any of our programming, you can support us. You can sponsor us. We have a mission here, and our mission is to bring voices to live streaming and to the world that don't normally get heard. If you check my Instagram and check the story about Olivia Robinson, you can see what I'm talking about. But I would really appreciate it if you could go to the sponsor page. I've got information there, and sponsor me. You can do it right here on Haps, $5 a month, $50 a month, $10 a month, whatever you're comfortable with. But support our work and support this kind of programming. I think it's important, and I hope you do too. All right. Well, without any delay, let's meet Mr. Ross. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, awesome to be here.
Awesome to have you here. I mean, this is like what I love about live streaming. I mean, like 3 or 4 days ago, we didn't even know each other existed. And, now we're sitting in each other's virtual living rooms, and you're up at the crack of dawn in Stuttgart, right?
Yes, I'm currently in Stuttgart. It's early in the morning. You're completely right. I'm already filled with coffee and
and lemonade. You've got some lemonade you're drinking, filled with coffee. I could use a little. I could use a little something if anybody happens to be listening to the show, wants to bring me something. What is just out of curiosity? Actually, what's the weather like in Germany? How's the summer been? Has it been normal, or you guys have had a lot of weird weather, haven't you?
Yeah, it's. I mean, you in the US you have the same experience in New York, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like we had super heavy floodings in a specific local area.
Right.
So, and this was really serious. I mean, more than 150 people died in their houses.
Oh, I did not know it was that many.
Yeah. And I mean, you have seen the videos of New York where people in the basement flats were killed, or in the tube, all this stuff. I mean, totally crazy. And it was a crazy summer. So to all the people out there, climate change is coming. So
yes, I'm glad we have that in agreement. That'll say a lot about our political bent right there. Just saying climate change is coming. Climate change is here. Global climate change. I was actually not necessarily the subject tonight, but I keep up on the updates quite a bit through some podcasts, and these things are moving a little more rapidly than they might have thought. A while back. So, and I will say that just as anybody that's listening that's interested in that kind of stuff, there's a great podcast called The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. They cover it really well, and they do I think they do a very good job when they do the coverage. But the other thing that I did hear very recently is European climate may be changing because the Gulf of Mexico and the Gulf Stream and that warm water that travels all the way, from the southern United States up there to the coast of England has reversed. So if that continues to be reversed, say hello to a lot more snow in England than they're used to, because you guys are pretty far north compared to where I am in Chicago. in England, especially. You're in Germany, but if that thing doesn't shift back, that's going to be a problem.
Exactly, that's going to be a problem. And this year, just for your information, it was the first time that we had rain on the Greenland ice shield.
Oh,
Normally
wow.
there's snow, so this was the first time that there was rain falling there, and this is not a good sign because
No.
the Greenland ice shield is about 2 kilometers,
Yeah.
kilometers of ice.
Oh God. No, I mean,
It's a lot of
look, just
water.
forget Antarctica for now. Just the Greenland ice sheet. The the idea has been that, it's going to take a long time before that, is a problem. And yeah, but if it starts to rain, we know what happens when water gets underneath ice and it gets slippery. The whole freaking continent there could just slip into the water. And even in Chicago, we would probably practically lake ocean property here if something like that happened. But let's dive into what kind of prompted me when I strolled across Twitter to get to see you, and that really was the internet and cybersecurity and these type of things. And I have wanted to have a show for a long time about just those things. And I love that I've got somebody that in it kind of at a different part of the world, also with a little bit of a perspective of the way those things go.
So you like horror movies, or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I typed in the keywords like Huawei, right?
Yep.
And right, Huawei, 5G, and like, oh my gosh, we have been, from the American perspective, um, we have been putting in little back doors to the stuff we've been sending to them too. It's not just them doing it to us, but I don't think most people really even have a handle on personal internet security. Right? Most people don't have, too many things to, like. And for example, I have a VPN, but I hate using it because I have literally a 1 gigabyte, down on my internet. I throw on that, and it's like, okay, what's the even point of having an internet? So when that stuff slows it down, so it's frustrating for people, cybersecurity wise. But why is it? Why is it a horror movie?
Yeah, well, it's a horror movie. Like, there is a good on the hacker scene. There's a good quote that means knowledge brings fear. So, if you know about all the stuff which are going on, for example, recently the NSO hacking group, which is a company in Israel, they have a completely sued to wiretap people on the iPhone. And if you know what kind of people had been wiretapped, it was journalists, activists, and they get everything. They have full access on your iPhone because they're
One hundred
using
percent,
exploit.
right? They could pretty much do whatever they wanted.
Yeah, exactly. And we know there's a lot of things how you can, yeah, disintegrate people because you have the right hacking tools out there. This is really, yeah, a serious problem.
Yeah.
And
Hey, Sports for
I
the
mean,
Blind. Nice to see you. Um, Even that, like, so basically, I think what they were doing with the iPhone, right, was they were sending a phishing kind of link, and you had to click on that link, right? Or no?
no, it's much more worse.
Oh
What
gosh.
I have is a so-called zero-click exploit, which means you don't need to click on anything to get
Wow.
infected. It was just simple. They were pinging to a service in the iCloud. It was a specific exploit or vulnerability in the
Oh, so
iCloud,
if you're
which they were
connected to
using.
iCloud,
Yeah, exactly.
they
So,
had a backdoor
uh,
in.
and this is really scary because normally you have this kind of exploits where you have to click on. So you're getting a phishing mail.
Right.
Okay, you click on. I mean, you have the chance as a user, if you are aware enough, to protect yourself. But
Hmm.
on a zero-click exploit, you have no
Yeah, it's
chance. I mean,
zero click. You don't have to do anything.
zero-click. Yeah,
Look at your phone funny, and the
this is
Israelis are
really
spying on you. But the interesting thing about that is, so this is a company, that has sold this software that's like, we don't spy on anybody. We sell you the stuff to spy on people, but we don't spy on anybody. But I mean, this company had to be known to exist, right? I mean, you can't be 100% in secret. So, I mean, the U.S. government, the Israeli government, the Russians, they had, if they didn't know this company was doing this, they should have. And this, exploit, is this something they can patch? Like, or
I mean, uh, now we are. It's a good part of the discussion. First of all, this was not the first time that the NSO group had been visible. You remember Jeff Bezos and sorry, the dick pig.
oh yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's fine. You could say that. Yes.
yeah, exactly.
That was
So
through that.
I mean, it has been before that the tools of NSO group has been used to spy people which are not criminals or which are not normally in the scope, like being a terrorist. So it
Right.
has been used to spy, let's say, regular billionaires and other people. And even they had been, there was a lawsuit as well in the US where they had to pay money for spying people which are not the usual suspects or targets for this kind of weapon, because we have to call it a weapon. This is a cyber
Yeah.
weapon for which can be rented by governments, and normally it's used, let's say, for law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So what we see now is that this is a completely new quality. I mean, they have sold it to governments in the world, in Africa or Middle East, which is really, really, really critical towards really. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. No, I actually have a feature on my headphones that
Okay.
gives
Sorry, I
this.
was a
I'm
little bit
hearing
confused.
noise in the background because it's on the wrong setting. No, we're fine.
so, so okay. So, I mean, the question is now why these companies can exist, isn't it? And of course, there is an interest from certain governments that these companies can deliver the tools. For example, if you want to wiretap terrorists or if you want to
Mm-hmm.
find criminals, all good. But the problem is if the things are getting out of control and there is less control on these companies. And this is really critical. And having a look on the forensic reasons, how to find out if you are infected with their tools, it's so hard because they have implemented things to wiretap you and then to remove everything, all the evidence that this tool had been installed afterwards on the phone. So, and this is really, 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 really serious.
Yeah, I would think. Again, it's just people find exploits all the time, and white hat hackers, notify
Yeah.
Apple or Microsoft or whatever. And I mean, these exploits go back to, I can remember stuff in the early 2000s. There was a big one, um, big exploit, and it was the name was in popular culture. It was so big I can't remember what it was. Somewhere around 20 years ago, but the
Yeah, we're giving exploits brands in cybersecurity. That's
yeah.
Heartbleed, whatever. They're always great brands. But yeah, keep
Right.
in mind, there companies like NSO, they need to buy this exploits on the dark market. So there is a dark
Mm,
market out there. We call in cybersecurity, they are so-called white hat hackers. Um, that's hackers who are doing so-called responsible disclosures. So, for example, if you find an exploit on the iCloud or on the iPhone, they are reporting this to Apple or to Google
hmm
just before they're publishing the exploit. I mean, this is a little bit about fame because if you go to a Black Hat or a DEF CON or one of the great hacking conferences, you're giving a talk and you had been the one who has exploited the iPhone. So the responsible disclosure means that you report it first to the companies so that they can reproduce the problem and can create a fix. And then you're
Right.
getting these fancy updates on your iPhone. But there are people out there who are not doing that. They find an exploit and they're looking for exploits to sell them on the black markets.
They
And the
literally sell the
price,
exploit.
exactly, and the price for such zero click exploit would be more than $1 million US. So this is
I
really
would
a big
think.
ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zero
And I
click.
mean, this is only possible because companies and governments are buying this exploits on the black market.
Right. I mean, there's a there's a need for it, right? There's a market for it. So it's going to be, if people want to buy it, somebody's going to build it, right? They're going to find their way, to make it happen. What, with that kind of zero exploit, I mean, there's nothing we can do to protect ourselves, right?
No, that's why it's called 0 day. I mean, nobody knows about this. This is like, think you have a home and you have all your doors locked, but someone has found out how to get through the window in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you think it's all locked, but you can open it.
And they've been living down there for 3 months and he didn't even know it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the way how it works.
Yeah. That is, I mean, that is troubling. And I touched on this a little bit too before we talked. Companies also can put backdoors into things. So, and we could talk about that a little bit, but I think I also kind of want to talk a little bit about the idea of privacy anymore, because access to our stuff is, it's a business. That's called Google. It's called Facebook. That's what they do. They exploit us in terms of, our information that they take, to profit from. So it's not that far off, even ideologically, I think, if you really think about it. But the these systems, like, who is it? Somebody just completely like banned all purchases of Huawei products. Like, I don't know. I thought it was a European country, but for 5G stuff, because the Chinese are really have a better 5G system than we do here, from what I understand.
Yeah. First of all, it's a former European country. It's the UK.
Okay, former, very good. Yes,
part
former.
of the European Union, but they're still part of Europe. Let's say.
Right. Yeah, well, that's another mistake. But anyway,
I mean, this is really a complicated topic. First of all, let me say I'm a European, so on my network equipment, I will have backdoors from the US, give or take, from US products, and maybe I have backdoor from the Chinese products.
Right.
So it seems to be that building backdoors in products has a big tradition, because it seems to be a good opportunity to sneak into communication. So first of all, there are backdoors. Backdoors are existing. That's a fact. Now the question is, if you go into this large network communication infrastructure investments and stuff like that, there are always governments included, because this is really big money and big plans. So for Europe, for example, there are certain institutions out there where the network equipment needs to be tested, and the network suppliers needs to disclose even their source code. So we know from the UOI equipment that there haven't been, let's say, backdoors found officially on what they have provided for the test gears and the test devices. So now the question is, where are the backdoors? Obviously, you can implement backdoors on levels which are more harder to detect. Let's say, I mean, these are complex products. They are built of semiconductors. They are built of software.
Can these be hardware based and software based?
Exactly.
A backdoor.
And there are, have a look, like in the semiconductor industry where semiconductors are produced. I mean, the best way to implement backdoors is on a design level of the semiconductor. So if you have a processor, and of course you're implementing as a really high level attacker, and we're talking about state motivated attackers there, of course you will implement backdoors in a way of the semiconductor design. Let's take again the idea of a house and you have a door. So if there are certain agreements out there and standards how to make a lock on a door, which is all good, and everybody is focusing on, is the lock safe? You maybe just implement a way how to unscrew a door easily. So this is less obvious, yes, because everybody is focusing on the lock. And That's
on
the
the lock
way.
itself, but you're going to take it off the hinges from the inside somehow and just walk
Exactly.
right in.
Exactly. On what we call this is a so-called side channel attack.
Side
I
channel
think the
attack. Okay.
real serious backdoors today are made by side channel attacks. They're really hard to detect, and even you can't easily protect from them. And everybody is focusing on the software backlogs, which are, let's say, kindergarten in cybersecurity. The real intelligence and great stuff is going on in the side channel attacks.
Well, and you can bake these into products that will end up in nuclear power plants and electric
Yes.
grids and things like that. I mean,
Yes.
um, when we talk about cybersecurity and weapons and war, again, I don't think people really realize that. I would imagine every day people in your industry and in the governments and everything. I mean, it's just a fight 24 hours a day. I mean, if Vladimir over there could down our electric grid, doesn't mean he's gonna, but he could quite well, or the Chinese even could have the capability to shut down half the power grid in the United States if they've got some backdoors, probably to less systems than I would hope, because there's probably something they can find to exploit. But I mean, I don't think people really realize just how much of our lives are just, you can't undo the internet, right? I mean, we can't undo it, and it's not just you and I's personal information; it's actually war. And I guess we're probably, from our perspectives in the West, we're at war all the time with China and Russia.
Yes, there's something going on, which is, let's see it a little bit like in the Cold War. I mean, there's a continuous tension, and where the superpowers are trying to tease themselves and test themselves. So it's rather similar to the Cold War, what we see in the cyber security area and the cyber wars. And I think there is a need to ban cyber weapons or to treat cyber weapons in the same way we did with nuclear weapons or with chemical weapons or biological weapons. The only reason why this has not happened yet is that nobody of the superpowers were clashing directly rather hard with cyber weapons. They have some test battlefields, test grounds. Let's take, for example, Ukraine. There was a cyber attack on the Ukraine power grid, where a cyber weapon has teared down the Ukraine power grid. I mean, and this is not a high sophisticated super internet powered
Right.
infrastructure. This is maybe, we would say, super resilient because it's made of rather classical, not connected technology, but they managed
Right. A lot of it's not connected
done.
to the internet.
Exactly. Or if we look in the Middle East, there had been cyber attacks carried out on Iran, to stop their
Their
nuclear
weapons
weapons.
building facilities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on the other side, we have seen cyber attacks carried out on Israel, or rather, let's say, cyber attacks carried out with drones. I mean, there are so many things going on, which are, let's say, small battlefields or small clashes, small battlegrounds. But if we look at a company like Google, keep in mind, I'm from Germany, so we had terrible two world wars, and the completely infrastructure of Germany had been destroyed 2 times, rather terrible. So we
Right.
have companies out there, car manufacturers, who have survived both world wars with their infrastructure completely wrecked. Google has never approached yet such a hit, such a completely damage of their own digital infrastructure.
Right. They've never been pushed back to the Stone Age.
Exactly, but on a cyber war, exactly this would be happening. This will be happening. It's like pushing Google back to the Stone Age. So will Google survive a cyber war, like a car manufacturer has survived the bombing of their infrastructure? It's a rather similar picture, but the only difference is that these bombs are not made of explosive; they are made of bits and bytes.
Well, and specifically, just think of how many server farms Google must have. I mean, it just like got to be huge. I mean, they put them in the ocean now because they can cool them more cheaply by putting them, some depth in the ocean. And so, um, even just a coordinated attack on, half of the those server farms for Google. I mean, that kind of stuff could be, a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. And we are stepping more and more into a digital infrastructure connected world. So that means that companies are getting more and more vulnerable on this. And we had a great discussion about where, if you're a hacker and you want to make a little bit, fun with people, just do a Bluetooth hacking when you're in the school bus. Sorry, this is not advice for kids out there.
No, go ahead.
But keep in mind, you will jam all the Bluetooth signal in a school bus, or the 5G or the 4G signal in the school bus. Everybody will freak out because, I mean, they're not using their smartphones for calls. They're using their smartphones for social interaction. So they will freak out. It's the end of their social interaction. They need to talk. I mean,
right.
They're
Can't
not
listen
used
to
to
their
it.
music or anything. And something like Bluetooth, even Bluetooth 5, it's not like rock solid security on that thing. You know what I mean? Like 12-year-old can pretty much stop your headphones from playing.
Exactly.
With a little bit of
for the cell phone protocols. I mean, these are all protocols which have been a long history of design, and security or insecurity is known very well for these protocols.
And I guess for the average consumer of phones, I guess if you really wanted to be safe on your phone, is just don't ever use it, for banking or anything. Never put that data in there. But, then when they're on your phone and they can exploit that and then figure a way into your computer where you're doing it, it's like, I think you just kind of, in America, if you have a credit card stolen, you're not responsible for the fees, right? I mean, I don't know if we'll just have to be at a culture where when you're hacked and that's gone, it's just you're not going to be responsible for the fees either, because I don't see that I have much privacy at all, and I try to be aware of my cybersecurity state of being.
Yes, but the internet was not designed for privacy. Never.
Right.
It was always designed to send a package from one point to another point, and the address of the points are known. So the internet, privacy is not a layer of the internet. It's not the core of the internet, because with privacy, the internet will not work properly as we know it. So it's a defect in self. If you look from a privacy perspective, the internet itself has a core defect.
Yeah, at its foundation, the defect of just sending packets between point A and point B that need to be known. A little bit of a sidebar: the things like Proton Mail or Signal, those type of apps, probably pretty secure from normal kind of hackers. But I would think those things are. I mean, once we get to the thing that's always interesting to me about encryption is, okay, so if I encrypt it on this end and you encrypt it on that end, great. But if there's any little step in between or something, if it's encrypted from point A to point B, it's tough to unencrypt it. But all you got to be able to do is get to point B and then get to their screen and look what they just unencrypted, right? I mean, that's the thing. You can encrypt everything you want, and then you have an exploit to see my personal email, after on my Proton Mail. You know what I mean? You can look at my screen or whatever, and you're done. So I don't know. Are we just selling these things to people more or less just to make them feel good?
No, I think it's necessary, because what you can defend is, of course, that there is a man in the middle. The classical man in the middle attack, you can put this stuff out. And this is rather important because, I mean, not every criminal is a high sophisticated hacker or has the ability to get tools which are worth millions of dollars to compromise an iPhone. So many of what attacks we see are carried out by people who just have downloaded exploit tools from the black market or using exploit tools as a service, and these are not so high sophisticated attackers. So
Well,
by
I definitely.
using
Oh, so go ahead. Sorry.
a tool like Signal, where you have completely end-to-end encryption, is something good. I mean, it's super. It protects you from this easy attacks.
Right, and I know that iMessage, FaceTime, and FaceTime audio, especially, I know for sure FaceTime audio is end-to-end encrypted, and people don't necessarily realize that. If you want an easy end-to-end encryption system, just use FaceTime audio. But so from your perspective as a kind of a consumer of computers, not an expert, but what are some things that you do for your personal security? Do you have things on your programs and stuff on your computer to make it more difficult, or how do you live in the world of security personally?
Okay, we'll not disclose too much, but
yes, I was going to say don't. Yeah. No, I was actually thinking that you don't have to give us the deep. You don't even talk about yourself. Talk about your neighbor.
No, but there are some things. I mean, when we had the discussion in before of the show, I said, "Come on, let's go to Signal." This is something like I prefer messengers where I know that there's a fully end-to-end encryption, and where as well there's a trustworthy entity in behind who is operating this. I mean, we had another discussion about Signal and Telegram. You remember? And I said, well, Telegram is also interesting because if you look who are the owners in behind, so the question would be as well, not only from a technical perspective, is there security in there, but the question as well, do you trust the operators of the service?
Because obviously they can build in, they can just open their own can up and
exactly.
look inside.
And
well,
so
who does Telegram? Who owns Telegram?
Oh, it's a company. I need to.
Well, no, because you said WhatsApp is a U.S.
I think they're now in Cyprus. They are now organized in Cyprus. But
okay.
There is a Russian background from the investors and the operators in Telegram. So, okay, I mean, who should I trust? If I don't trust WhatsApp because it's operated by Mark Zuckerberg, and we know that Facebook is quite curious on what we are talking about, why should I trust another operator who has maybe the Russian in there? Or then it's more obvious to use WeChat because it's the Chinese government who is looking into, and I mean, you need to be aware who is the operator and then choose your channels. And for Signal, what I like on Signal, that there is a foundation in there, okay, but it's an independent foundation and they have privacy in their core. They are disclosing all the sources, so you can build your own Signal messenger if you would like to do that.
Yeah, I realized that a while ago that they have like an open source kind of thing.
Exactly. So this is rather trustworthy to me, and by that I like it. I mean, that's what I prefer to do my communication with them.
Well, I know that. So, for example, for me, from the perspective of I've got a Mac, I've got iPhones, and all of that stuff. So, one of the things that I'm not somebody that generally is going to trust corporate America, but Apple really puts it out there that they find your privacy important, and Apple does go to battle at times with the U.S. government and stuff like that. So that gives me a little bit of confidence in Apple products in the sense that, they're aware of it, but then we have the zero exploit, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't even know if it matters.
I mean, Apple is super clever. Let's take I really trust like for their end-to-end encryption stuff, and that they do a strong encryption as well on the iPhone and security, that they keep an eye on the security. Keep in mind, like they're building a house with strong doors. Now, if we look into this law enforcement stuff, which is really complicated because we're talking about law, like local regulations. So Apple can't be on top of the law, so they have to play with the US rules and the governments of the US rules. So, for example, there's a need of law enforcement to access sometimes data on an iPhone. So what Apple did, I think, was rather clever. I mean, they have positioned themselves into a market differentiation towards privacy, which is to me remarkable as a European for a US company. because this was a long time not on any focus of US companies that you have to deal with privacy. So
Right.
they did this very well, bringing in that position. On the other side, there is a desire of law enforcement to access on an iPhone. So what Apple did, and they did it rather brilliant, they had introduced, first of all, Face ID. And
Right.
I mean, Face ID is a single factor authentication based upon your biometrics. And it works rather easy. So if you want to unlock an iPhone of someone, all what you
Just hold
need
it in
to
front
do
of their
is
face.
put the iPhone in front of his face. And even like, you don't have to touch him. I mean, there's even no physical thing involved there, no physical violence. You just have to hold it in front of it. And this is perfect for law enforcement because, I mean, was there physical violence involved when they locked your
Right.
iPhone? No.
Right.
This is a classical workaround, which is rather brilliant and clever.
I
From a
hadn't even
side,
thought of that. I mean, because obviously they have this little feature that if you're not looking at it, it won't unlock. But I mean, most people wouldn't set it to that, and eventually you're gonna look at the phone if you hold it in front of somebody's face long enough or whatever. But I hadn't even thought about that. That all the police and law enforcement that complain about not being able to access the phones, it's not that hard if you got a face to put the phone, in front of. So yeah, there goes my theory about Apple and security.
yes, and like, but what is rather interesting, Apple did it so brilliant because people like it. I mean, you like
Mm-hmm.
Face ID because it's so convenient to use it and stuff like that. And of course, it's convenient for people who want to access your phone as well. It's a rather convenient method. So the problem in there is that you're using biometrics, which is fine, but you use it as a single factor authentication.
Yeah,
This
right.
is
Instead
not
of two
secure.
factor. Right. Give
Exactly, you
me
need a
give
two-factor.
me face recognition and a code to tap on the back of the phone. You know,
Exactly. This would
um,
be this would be super, but then you're losing all the convenience
of
of
single
Face ID.
factor authentication.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think that, I mean, if you really are, I mean, if you're a criminal, and I'm not giving any advice to criminals here, but you turn off your face ID and use a regular password, and they ain't cracking that. And I use a 6 instead of a 4, so that's harder to crack. But not
Yeah.
that anybody's going to be spying on me, but
No, but it's just something like where we see, I mean, like what I want to say is that cybersecurity and privacy is a complicated topic because they're different. There are a lot of interests are coming together there, and there are good reasons why, for example, a government should access sometimes a digital phone. There are good reasons why we need it as well as a society. So I'm not completely blocking that, but what I think is the problem in there is that we just haven't found out the right tools how to control such demands and such
mm-hmm.
access.
Well, so it's not just, to me, what you're saying is it's not just the physical phone and the device and the need. There's also a philosophical. There's kind of a moral kind of decision making that we need to make about even who has access to what and why. And in fact, Apple just had the thing here in the States. I don't know if it got any news coverage over there, but they have got a system. They've been doing it for a while, apparently, that off the iCloud, it scans for known. Now, not just, it doesn't judge whether somebody's underage, but it scans for known child pornography and can report that or whatever. And I literally, I have no problem with it. I'm quite certain I don't have any known child pornography, on my phone. So that's kind of fine with me. And if you don't want it, they said if you don't want us to be scanning that, don't use iCloud, which kind of makes my iPhone hard to use in a lot of ways. But that kind of thing, that's a there's value judgments and stuff that we need to make in terms of who can access our phone and things like that. The classic scenario with a terrorist, right? And then we know, rational people know that torturing terrorists doesn't yield you much, but being able to get into a terrorist's iPhone, that could yield you a lot of information, and that does frustrate the government, I'm sure, when they need to be able to get in, because Apple has made that tough. But now you've basically told us that anybody with an iPhone, when did face iPhone 10 or newer, the cops are just going to hold it in front of your face.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, and I think it's rather interesting to talk with someone from the US about privacy, because it's like what I see, like for Europe, for example, the European Union has really set up their unique selling point as a market or a union to say, well, one unique selling point of Europe is privacy, and that's why we got the GDPR. The GDPR has become a great blueprint on how to support societies to protect individual data, and even give companies a guidance how to treat with data and stuff like that. And this is rather remarkable now to see that in the US we have the privacy discussion, and more privacy awareness has risen the past 5 years. And even that Apple is going into this privacy, let's say, USP on the one side. Let's think about this. Picture scanning stuff is a little bit, let's say, I don't know. It doesn't fit very well to that strategy. But however, it's a decision they made. But let's have a look. I mean, there is more privacy awareness out there, but privacy itself is a cultural thing.
Very good.
If you
yes.
talk with Chinese about privacy, I mean, you will find out that they have a different attitude. The US citizens have a different attitude to privacy than Europeans. I mean, this is the discussion we have to.
Well, even within, the EU, and I mean, German law, negative law versus positive law, and all these different things. There's a lot of these cultural touch points, and you bring the thing about Japan, because it makes me think about not Japan, but China, where they basically just send you a text, and your city is locked down, get in your house. They just ping it out to everybody. I mean, control is just an interesting thing with technology, that direct control, like the Chinese. If you are not in your home, because we can see where you are, I'm not saying they do this, but in 10 minutes your door is going to be locked and you're not going to be able to get back in. So somebody in China's idea and understanding of privacy is going to be completely different, and that makes it tough, because one of the things I always think about the EU is, you are constantly going after Google and the Facebooks and and the Microsofts, and saying, oh, no, you cannot do that in the EU. You might be able to do that in the United States, but we don't want that. We want a higher level of security, or we want more fair search methodologies or search engine access or whatever. But the EU is actively kind of aggressively going after these tech companies, where in the United States they kind of get to do whatever they want.
Yes, but I was really curiously watching when Mark Zuckerberg has to go to your House
Congress.
Congress, and
yes,
he has this really painful question. Some questions have been really painful, and I really like that. I mean, there was one congressman who had this big bunch of paper, and he was asking it, "Oh, do you know what it is?" And he said, "Well, I don't know." "Yeah, well, that's your terms of conditions. You have to agree."
Your terms of service?
Yeah, have you ever read it? I mean, do you expect people can read this? I mean, there were great moments, I think, showing let's say, the dysfunctional situation towards privacy on all the services. I mean, so let's say it in a way, you can't change something overnight. But these are the first signs of changes as well towards the industry.
What do you see, just from your perspective, in everything you do? Where do you see we're going with cybersecurity in the future? I mean,
Well, as I said, knowledge brings fear, but it's, look, first of all, if it's connected, you can hack it. That's one rule. So if we are stepping into a world where everything is connected, and obviously this is the way how it goes. I mean, I'm sitting here on this nice lounge couch. Maybe this couch will be connected because it will measure my weight to make my body
Right.
control monitoring system, whatever. I mean, there are so many applications out there. So if everything is connected, everything is hackable. That's number one. So it means cybersecurity is maybe an illusion. So we have to find out that we are living in a vulnerable world, and we have to change our attitudes and our behavior to be aware that this is a vulnerable world. What we see with the pandemic, I mean, this is a perfectly example. One lesson we have from the pandemic is, well, whatever high medicine we have, I mean, whatever is our system, we are highly vulnerable through a bloody damn small piece of DNA or RNA, which is baked into a virus. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's and this is, I mean, this is not a new principle. Viruses are existing since life on Earth. I mean, there are more
Right.
viruses out there than any other life form. So if we
Mm-hmm.
look on life on Earth, we have to admit that viruses are the main kings and rulers. And
Yeah.
maybe for
Viruses,
cybersecurity,
phages, and bacteria. That's what the planet is.
exactly, and maybe for our world in cybersecurity, we have to think about how to get more resilient. I mean, that's,
Mm.
of course we have to defend, but we have to admit that infection is something usually happens during your digital lifetime, and we have to find out how to make the systems more resilient.
Well, when you talk about the Internet of Things, like your couch, being hooked up, to the internet, it to me it is really just coming down to, once every system is hooked up, that vulnerability is incredible. So I don't see how that is going to change, anytime soon, because we are not stopping. We're making everything connected to the internet. I mean, like, I'm sure they connect kids' toy chests to the internet for some reason. I'm not sure
Yeah,
why. Maybe to let you know that your action figure is broken and you should order a new one or whatever. But anything that can be hooked up to the internet, it seems like they're hooking it up to the internet. And a lot of those Internet of Things systems are not very secure from the get go. The product
exactly.
itself that you're hooking up.
Exactly, and if you look for the consumers, I mean, people are buying that stuff. That's what I'm most wondering. For example, due to the pandemic, we have seen a rise of sales of connected sex toys. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I can
It was
understand why
huge.
people
It
are
was
buying
huge.
connected sex toys.
Yeah.
If you can't travel anymore, but I mean, this is the most stupid connected product in terms of privacy and security you can buy as a consumer. And even the people didn't know about where these toys are communicating. I mean, many of them are sending the data to Chinese clouds, unencrypted. I mean,
Oh,
if we talk about penetration tests, I mean,
yeah.
this is high-level cybersecurity penetration tests in practice.
Right. It's very easy to get into the Internet of Things vibrating toy.
Yeah,
um,
stupid.
yeah.
Really.
No, but I mean, you can, it gets to a certain point, and I mean, you got bad actors in the world, and you said it. Germany went through two devastating wars. You take down the infrastructure of a continent or a country, you're not going to get much worse than that. In terms of people not being able to survive and stuff. I mean, even the what's happening in southeastern United States, with the hurricanes and people being out of electricity for 3 weeks at a time, from a random storm. Oh, here's the other thing too. Just because this goes way back again in my mind, because one of the exploits that it never really materialized, but that people talked about when we were first talking about exploits is you could just tell every computer to turn your fan off and overheat the board and take out thousands, hundreds of thousands of computers around the world. I mean, the vulnerabilities are so crazy. You know what I mean? That, the nice thing with my M1 Mac, that fan doesn't drive very much, thank goodness. But, there's just so many things you could do to shut everything down. Just, shut it all down. So
Exactly.
why?
And yeah, and the attackers are super creative. There's a high creativity in the cyber attacking industry. For example, if you want to tear down a power grid, normally what you do is, first of all, you do a focus on all the industrial components who are operating in a power grid, who are connected, to just to protect them, like install all the fancy things, to find to protect your, or to increase the security on connected industrial control units and stuff like that. All fine. So you did this, but I can tear down your power grid anyway by attacking all the consumer boilers which are connected. All the boiling units who are heating up waters in households, if they are connected, if I have a vulnerability found out there, I just put on all the boilers on the same time. By that, I will just overstress the power grid on a certain cell. And then you have an effect, like if one cell is collapsing, it will lead to collapsing another cell and stuff like that. So by attacking
your connected refrigerator or air conditioner or whatever could be used as a weapon.
Exactly. So the single consumer product will be part of a weapon, and there is no way to protect a power grid out of that, because it's just going then to the physical principle of a power grid, that if there are too much consumers in there, it will collapse.
Hey, Sports for the Blind, what were you saying there? What's out door locks? Just repeat that for me. And thank you. It is an interesting discussion because we're 52 minutes into it and it feels like it's been about 10. So let me run a quick little promo here and be able Mirko and I to stretch our legs for a second, and we'll come back for a little bit. But I just appreciate you having here, man, because like I said, this stuff interests me a lot. You know what I mean? And it's fun to have somebody that knows all about it. We'll be right back.
Hey there. I just wanted to take a quick break and quickly say, if you like this program or any of our programming, you can support us. You can sponsor us. We have a mission here, and our mission is to bring voices to live streaming and to the world that don't normally get heard. If you check my Instagram and check the story about Olivia Robinson, you can see what I'm talking about. But I would really appreciate it if you could go to the sponsor page. I've got information there, and sponsor me. You can do it right here on Haps, $5 a month, $50 a month, $10 a month, whatever you're comfortable with. But support our work and support this kind of programming. I think it's important, and I hope you do too.
Here's what Sports for the Blind was saying. Welcome back, everybody. What about door locks? Yeah. I mean,
okay. On the highlights of the most stupid products in the Internet of Things, I can't decide if door locks are number one or sex toys are number one. But let's assume door locks are
number one,
maybe on the top one or two. Why?
Yeah.
Okay. Locks are already, not connected locks are already a complicated product. Because I mean, the lock industry had been created 4,000 years before Christ. I mean, it's a really old industry creating locks. Remember, we know the first locks from Egypt, or locks, locking.
Oh no, I did not realize that.
Pyramids and stuff like that. So there was always people in there who tried to lock things, and by that there have been always people in there trying to unlock things. I mean, so the lock picker industry is as well 4,000 years old. So for the not connected locks, we have reached a level after 4,000 years where you can say, well, we can build a secure lock, so that a usual lock picker needs really a long time to unlock it, because of the way how the material is built and how we design locks. So there's a long experience in the industry doing that. Okay, now we're getting smart locks. So we have already a super complex product which is a lock, and we are adding a software layer on it.
Makes sense.
Yes. And now we know software layers are vulnerable. I mean, we take something which is pretty secure, and we're adding something which is unsecure on it. And to be honest, the result, and this is simple math, of adding something minus on it, the result, if you say, well, locks are 4 and the Internet of Things are 2, and you're adding on it, but it's unsecure, you're not adding, you're doing a minus. So the result of a smart lock will be always that it's less secure than a traditional lock. That's rather simple logical.
Yeah, right. I mean, it has to be. I mean, there's no, yeah, I see what you're saying. And I mean, you know, hey, Google, turn the ceiling lights red. You don't get to see it much on here because I've got a huge light on in front of me. But, you know, it's as simple as that. Hey, Google, turn the ceiling lights back to 5,600 Kelvin. But yeah, I mean, you can hack my lights, for God's sakes. There's can't be hardly any security on there, you know, on those connected lights, especially because these are cheap ones, you know, from Amazon. So, you know, they couldn't even afford to put any security in there.
Exactly. And what we have seen now for the smart lock industry is, of course, we have the traditional lock industry. Let's say they know how to build physical good locks. And then we had seen a lot of startups rushing into this industry, which were coming from the software side. And they had no clue about how to build secure smart locks.
So their locks weren't even good locks.
Let's say they have a clue how to build a smart lock, but not a clue how to build a secure lock. And what we have seen in the first decade of smart locks was that I think 9 of 10 smart locks had been really critical bullshit. And it was rather funny because these locks are usually, they're super expensive. I mean, if you buy a smart lock, it's definitively more expensive than a regular lock. So from a consumer perspective, I mean, you're buying a product which is more expensive, so you will assume maybe that this is super secure compared to a traditional lock. And then what we've seen is like that there had been some great lock pickers out there who were just using a screwdriver to unlock a super secure smart lock.
A smart lock. Yeah. Well, if you don't know which way I mean, we got plenty of locks you can undo with a credit card here, you know, in terms of the kind of the old style thing. But that is interesting. I mean, again, I love this. I hadn't thought about that. I have thought about smart locks, and I'm like, why would I? Personally, I never thought about security. I'm like, why do I want to spend $300 so I can unlock my lock with my phone? Like, it, you know, I can think of better things to do with $300. I'll happily turn a key, but makes total sense that somebody else could come into my apartment with a zero-click exploit or whatever the hell they figured out on a not super sophisticated lock and have access to my house.
Yeah, but let's think about, like, okay, smart locks are a stupid product, but there are some certain applications where they make sense. For example, if I have a Airbnb rental and I want just to give people easy access who are renting my apartment, of course, a smart lock is a rather convenient way to do that because I don't need to exchange real keys and stuff like that, which is maybe also not secure because you're handing out a key to someone and you can just simply copy the key.
Copy it.
So by that, of course, there are advantages for smart locks, not to blame them completely, but what we see is like that the industry was not dealing very well with smart locks currently. And as this has used 4,000 years for the traditional lock industry, I would assume that we need as well 4,000 years to create
I hope not.
smart locks.
For God's sakes, 4,000 years from now, I should just be able to think and my door will unlock. So, wow, that is, that's stuff that, I mean, we hear all this security stuff, you know, the doom and gloom and the scary stuff that we hear through the news and everything. But I've really liked that little bit of granular conversation we've been able to have about these things, because that will now make me definitely not buy a smart lock, unless I have an application like an Airbnb, and then I can mitigate. I can assess the risk. But yeah. But my gosh, they what they're doing here in the States now. I don't know what it's so. You know how Apple has the little fobs now, but the Apple ones, they are on a network that they can be spotted much further than away from your kitchen, and they're starting to pay people like $100 a year to put an Internet of Things kind of network box in your home. You can have access to it, but you can't do anything with it really. But what it does is, for example, Amazon has this. Actually, you can opt out if you know how. It's difficult, but they're putting these little nodes in people's homes and different places, and they're these little private networks for their systems. So, and they've actually put that in. I think they've put it's in all new Amazon products by default. It's pinging, hey, I'm here, hey, I'm here, hey, I'm here, on everybody's Echoes and everything else. So that, again, you're adding another layer of all your devices don't work because somebody hacked the Amazon network that you didn't even know that they had on your device, because that 500 pages of terms of service you didn't read. So
yeah,
not to scare anybody.
Yeah. And let's say for the business reasons for Amazon, this is quite clever thing, because they're creating a network, they're creating an Internet of Things network where the consumers are operating the infrastructure. I mean, that's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
This is completely different to a cellular network you have for the smartphones, where you have telecom providers operating the infrastructure. No, here the consumers are operating the infrastructures. There will be no costs for Amazon on the infrastructure. This is brilliant.
Well, with Amazon, they're baking it right into their hardware. These other companies are paying you a nominal amount a month to let that hardware sit there so that they can build a network in your community. But can you imagine if even 10 years ago, I was pitching a VC, capital firm, and saying, look, for $10 million, let's say, I can put a complete mesh network in the city of Chicago, blah, blah, blah. And that would have normally cost hundreds of millions of dollars to put in a new infrastructure and all these different things. So it's very inexpensive to set up these networks too, because I've had two companies that have offered, that I can get to put those boxes in that will pay me to put the box in my home. So, it's such a big thing people don't know about as well. So,
yeah. And if you look at the Internet of Things, I mean, the question is why we have the Internet of Things. It seems to be that there is a big business driving in there. There are some business advantages you can create. You can create new business models. That's the reason why we have the Internet of Things. And by the business models, of course, we have to deal with the risks as well. I mean, have you known another fun fact? If we talk about botnets, for the people out there, what is a botnet? A botnet is like, I capture your device as a bot master operator. I'm the hacker. I'm capturing your device through a vulnerability, and then I have full control over your device. You will not recognize that it's someone other is controlling your device, and then there will be just a certain reason why he is using your device. For example, to carry out a massive attack on another infrastructure. Have you known, like, the major botnets now are all operated by Internet of Things devices? And now the question is,
they don't even use your PC. You mean it's just my gosh!
It's just an IP camera, for example.
Yeah, because IP cameras. I heard about that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now the question is, for what are they using these botnets? And of course, hackers, large botnets operators, they try to monetize this botnet. So they're creating rent my botnet as a service for whatever you want to do.
Whatever you want to exploit.
Yeah, exactly. And one service which is rather strange is, if you, for example, if you are out there and you're using social media and you're buying followers on Instagram, don't do that, because these followers are created by bots. And many of these bots are operated on Internet of Things, hacked Internet of Things devices. So there are a lot of botnets out there operated by the Internet of Things just to create social media followers where people are buying these followers on services. I mean,
so the follower is an individual bot.
Totally crazy.
That is crazy. Well, here, there's just a weird aside too. On Twitter, it's Twitter, I think. It happens on Instagram too, but Twitter used to happen all the time, where you would get somebody that would follow you, but would have, no followers. You know what I mean? There's basically nothing there. Like, what is that? What are they doing with that? What's like, are they, when you connect with it, now they know you exist. It's like calling my phone, and if I answer it, that's my phone number, whatever. I never figured out what these little weird things that happen on Twitter where,
there are a lot of strange things going on. As I said, like, consider that the attackers are super creative. For example, if I am an attacker and I'm attacking your completely company network, I need to control, however, the things I have injected into your company network. And normally what the companies are doing to protect for them, that they're doing a traffic inspection. So they have a look what kind of traffic is going into my company and what is going out. Are there any strange servers we are talking in our network? Are there any strange commands? And by that, they try to identify patterns. Could this possibly an attack? So and this is a super creative thing. So what some have found out is that we can control the control of this kind of things who had been injected into a company network is done over Twitter user accounts. So they create an account on Twitter, and to control the things which are happening in this captured network is by tweeting. So they sent out a strange tweet. And because it's a usual internet traffic, then you're just someone inside the company is just have a look on a Twitter account. I mean, you don't block that usually as a company. So it's a strange tweet, let's say a little bit of strange tweet. And this strange tweet is a command to a certain element in a hijacked network in a company. So this is the way how it's going. It's super, super strange. And then you have Twitter accounts which are not made for social interactions. They are made for controlling botnets, for example.
Holy shit. That's some crazy shit right there. I did not know that at all. Because I do over the years. I mean, I've been on Twitter since, it was publicly accessible. And that's been what, like 2007 or something? I don't know. Some crazy thing. But I've seen all kinds of weird things over the years. Like, why would this account even follow me? Why does it even exist? But that starts to explain things, because that's wild. That, but if it's a system and it can put through a command, and there's easy access to it, no worries about it or whatever, that's amazing. You set up an entire network through a series of Twitter accounts that nobody's going to think about security wise, because that's not how you normally do those things. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, exactly. You are hiding your evil actions on a very obvious way of communication. So
right
in
that's plain
fantastic.
sight.
I mean, it's fascinating, scary.
Yeah, well, you said it at the beginning, right? About the horror of cybersecurity, the horror story, the horror movie, and Mirko, that was awesome. I so appreciate that you got up very early to talk with me on a Saturday morning for you. Is it Saturday?
It's Saturday, yes.
Yes, Saturday morning. I really appreciate that you did that. This has just been a blast. Always awesome to make a new connection too. And I know you're on Clubhouse or whatever. So hit me up, stay connected. And folks, when you're seeing this on replay too, hit me up if you got more questions or whatever. We'll see if we can get them answered, because this has just been, I could think of a million other things we could talk about like this. So I really appreciate this.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for inviting me. It was really a pleasure. I will now go to breakfast.
Yeah.
Enjoying a coffee and
you go do that, my friend. Mirk Ross, pleasure very much to meet you, and looking forward to talking to you again. Everybody out there, thank you for watching tonight, both of our programs. And we will be on Monday with Roger Green Jr., Grammy nominated. Grammy nominated for songs for music, and is now doing some filmmaking. Very interesting cat, neat guy. Looking forward to him on Monday. On Wednesday, we have Abby Posner, and that'll be fun. Good music. So we will see you then. Thanks again, Mirko. We'll catch you later.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. All right.